Tossing Grenades at Windmills podcast.
So we last started with you heading to Louisiana, and I guess there's a lot of different ways we can go with this, and I have a separate session entirely I want to do in Casper with regards to your political stuff, because I don't think anybody in the family except me has the slightest idea, and I know I only have a few ideas.
Well, it actually started in Texas. Started when we were living in Houston.
It's interesting. I didn't know that. Although I know that it was so the bulk of it and your quasi fame was in Casper simply because.
Yes.
So let's start with having said that Louisiana, which I'm assuming is probably, correct me if I'm wrong, probably the only part of your marriage where my father was closer to the man you married before he started letting Exxon do what it did and other factors. So just tell me about what it was like. Go ahead and randomly include children, me, hooray! I entered the picture, and suddenly everything was better. Yeah, no, not really. But anyway, okay, so why don't you just tell me about Louisiana?
Okay. All right, well, I don't know what I haven't said, so I'll just say it. We were living in Provo, Utah. Actually, I think it was Spring, Utah. Going to BYU. Your dad was finishing up his MBA. He applied for several jobs. The only one he got was with Exxon. So, of course, he accepted that one. And for the trip, we drove. Did I mention the trip from Utah through?
Yes, visiting Grandpa Dorcas. You didn't mention the Grand Canyon, and you actually forgot to mention Nephi. So why don't we pick up the infamous snowball toilet paper incident and the dog and the Grand Canyon, and then go into Louisiana.
Okay. Well, while we were living in Utah, I really wanted a pet. Your dad hated cats, so he said, well, if we're getting an animal, it's going to be a dog. I don't know if I mentioned, but Richard's mother hated animals. She hated them. I don't trust somebody who hates animals or children. I just don't. I think there's something wrong. If you're allergic or you just don't want them or you're not comfortable around them, all of that I understand, okay? I don't understand somebody who hates animals or children. Dog owners who hate cats or cat owners who hate dogs. I understand if it's not your preference, but if you hate them, there's something wrong with you. And there was something wrong with Fosha, really wrong. Anyway, your Aunt Marie told me about having a kitten, and they kept it in the basement because Fosha really didn't feel like animals belonged in the house. A lot of people feel like that, but anyway, let's talk about animals for a bit, because that little bit's kind of interesting, I think. Aunt Marie talked about having a kitten, and Fosha told her to put it in the basement, and she didn't feel like doing it, so she threw it down the stairs. She was a child and was not from a particularly empathetic home. She's certainly a lot more empathetic now. So, it's understandable that a child might do something horrific like that. But that kind of shocked me when she told me that. But she was honest about it. So, and she didn't say she hated cats or anything. She just didn't know how to treat an animal. Judging how her parents treated their children, I'm not surprised she didn't know how to treat an animal. Anyway, your dad talked once about having a chicken. Back then, people would buy baby chicks for Easter. It was horrible. You'd find them in the store, and people would buy baby chicks for Easter, and then horrible things would happen to them because that was a horrible practice. So, but your father had had one of those chicks that he raised, and he obviously had affection for it, and even said it was starting to develop a little comb. It was turning into a rooster, and it disappeared. Let me guess what happened. Anyway, he didn't know what happened to it. I think he said maybe his parents said a dog got it or something. if a dog got it, I'm sure somebody threw it over the fence or something so a dog would get it. But anyway, so your dad decided that, if we're going to get an animal, we're going to get a dog. Okay, well, I just needed an animal. Okay. At that point, I was pregnant with you. I don't know if I mentioned this, but
you did, yes, last time.
Okay, all right. So I was pregnant with you. I had a little bit of nausea, but not too bad. I felt kind of, crappy because I'd never been pregnant before. Anyway, I'm all over the place, and I apologize for that.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Messed up right now. So anyway,
it makes things more interesting, in my opinion.
Okay. Anyway, so we started this big drive to Louisiana. Oh, dog. Anyway, one of your father's friends had a dog. I think she was like a collie mix.
Nephi was the collie. Yeah, his mother, right?
And the dog had puppies, and they asked if we wanted one. So we went over and looked at them. And, the owner was saying, there's this dog that wanders the neighborhood. And, she was joking about, I think what was the dog's name? It was something like Shotzi or something. Because the owner had been the guy had been on his mission to Japan, I think. So it was some kind of a Japanese name, I think. Anyway, so most of the puppies looked like Nephi. They were black and heavy, thick hair, curly, hard to, doesn't really shed. Nephi never really shedded hair like a dog normally does. He just gave off big wads of hair. So anyway, the puppies had been weaned, but there was this one puppy that was following the mom around and refusing to be weaned. And she was mad at it and kept turning around and snarling at it and trying to chase it off. And so Nephi was a neurotic dog from the beginning. But he's the one we picked, and we brought him home. He had, oh, God bless him. Anyway, so we brought this puppy with us on the trip to Baton Rouge, where your dad had been hired by Exxon. And, excuse me, and we, drove through all that and got to Baton Rouge. We looked around at a lot of places. I don't know if I told you there was a place there, one of the places we looked. We just got a really weird, creepy feeling when we drove through this one apartment complex. And I don't know what accounts for that. I'm at a point in my life where I'm not quite as mystical in my thinking. I don't know what I do and don't believe. I'm not really an atheist. And I don't believe all kinds of mystical stuff like I used to. But we got a really bad feeling driving through this apartment complex, and the next day we read that there'd been a murder-suicide. The very next day after we'd been there. We didn't even look an apartment in that place, but we found an apartment. We had neighbors across the way who became friends. I don't remember his name. Her name was Gary Lynn McCorkle. I don't think they had, but we were both pregnant. I think she was pregnant. I'm pretty sure she was pregnant. And we got along pretty well. She was from Texas. She was very strange. She was nice, but she was very strange, very opinionated, very pushy. We didn't always get along. But for the most part, we were friends. Nephi, poor Nephi, trying to potty train him. Oh, I didn't mention the butt cleaning. Yeah, we have an infamous picture of stopping by the Grand Canyon, which was awesome, but it was cold and there was snow. And Nephi, bless his heart, because of his thick fur and everything, he had very soft stools. That's not because of his thick fur, but he had very soft stools. He was a puppy. Puppies have soft stools, and so do babies for that matter. And because they're mostly eating things that are easy for babies to digest or puppies. And he had poop all over his butt. He had poop all over his butt. And so your dad picked him up and took a handful of snow to clean his butt with. Yeah. Anyway. And Nephi in the car, he didn't really like riding in the car. And he would do this bark that I'm going to try to do quietly the whole way. All the way there, which was kind of making us insane. Not easy in a closed car because it was very loud. Anyway, but I loved him. Anyway, so we get to Baton Rouge. We're trying to potty train Nephi. And your father was very old school. Now, I didn't know anything about dogs, really. I'd had one dog when I was a kid that we had for a week, a Cocker Spaniel, who was there a week and disappeared, I suspect, because he had potty training issues. Nephi was, we think, poodle, Cocker Spaniel, and, of course, collie from his mom. And he was very neurotic. I have decided that Cocker Spaniels are just not my kind of dog. When Christy got a Cocker Spaniel because she listened to Elaine, and Elaine loves Cocker Spaniels, she got a Cocker Spaniel. If she'd talked to me about what kind of dog she should get, I would have said, don't get a Cocker Spaniel because they're too neurotic and clingy. They're very, very clingy dogs. Anyway, so...
yeah, he was very
Your
clingy.
Your dad was old school, and when the dog went in the wrong place, your dad would shove his face in his crap, which horrified me. And since then, we've learned that no, that doesn't work as a potty training technique. You know, you don't shove the dog doesn't understand why you're doing that, especially if you're doing it an hour or two after the dog made the mistake. They don't make the connection. They don't understand it. And it was stupid and cruel and horrible. And I had a problem with it. And your dad and I talked about it, but that's how it was done. So Nephi was not stupid. He was actually a pretty smart dog. And the connection he made is that he's not allowed to go poop. That's what he thought. He thought, I can't poop around these people. So we'd take him out to go to the bathroom, and we would stand there with him, and we'd stand there with him, and we'd stand there, and we'd stand there, and we'd stand there. And he wouldn't go. And we'd come back in the house, and the minute our back was turned, he'd go on the floor. And we finally figured it out when we took him out to poop, and at some point, for some reason, we had turned our backs and were talking to somebody else or talking about something else, and when we turned around, he had gone. Because we had turned our backs. We weren't watching him. So he thought he was being punished for pooping. When he did that, of course, we praised him profusely, which he responded really, really well to praise. He never responded well to anger or anything like that. He always responded, he was desperate for love and praise. God, poor old Nephi. Anyway, so this was a whole new thing. We'd take him out and he'd go to the bathroom and we'd go, yay, Nephi! And he'd come running to us all happy and everything. Yay, we all understand each other now. Then there were other problems. Of course, because he was a puppy, he was chewing everything up. He chewed up my records. He chewed up my books. And, you know, he was a puppy, so that's what puppies do. Kaylee did the same thing when she was a puppy. So, you know, I look at my books and albums and things and go, oh, that's when Nephi was a puppy, that's when Kaylee was a puppy, that's when blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so let's see. Of course, I was getting bigger and bigger with you. I didn't drive. I didn't have a driver's license. I had never needed a driver's license. I either was dating somebody who had a car, who drove everywhere, or when I was living at home, I either walked, rode my bicycle, or rode the bus everywhere. I didn't need a driver's license. So here I was in Baton Rouge, pregnant with my first child, and nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do. So I watched when Star Trek was on TV. I was in college and I was way too busy to watch TV, so I had never seen Star Trek. But they were doing reruns on television every day, and that time I voraciously read both Family Circle and Woman's Day magazine mostly for the crafting and recipe stuff in it. They had all kinds of knitting and crochet stuff that you could do, and basic recipes that I liked. So I taught myself. My mother tried to teach me to do crochet when I was a kid, and I just couldn't get it. I got knitting. She taught me to knit when I was 8, and I learned that really well. But crocheting I just couldn't get. But with the Woman's Day magazine, they had step-by-step pictures, and I was 20. So actually by then I was 21. And I was able to teach myself how to crochet out of this Woman's Day magazine, and I became a crocheting fool, and made all kinds of crocheted things and loved it. And I would sit there and crochet while I watched The Price is Right. Hearing the theme song to The Price is Right still takes me right back to sitting on the couch watching that and crocheting. That's where my brain goes when I hear that theme song. And I would watch Star Trek. I got really, really hooked on Star Trek, really into it. I also got into a couple of soap operas, which made me a crazy person because, you know how soap operas are. I mean, they're so over the top and good and evil and all that stuff, and cliffhanger-ish and all that stuff. And I had never watched soap operas before, and I got very into these soap operas and found myself getting really upset as if this were real people. And I thought, this is dumb. I'm getting all upset about people who don't even exist. So I stopped watching the soap operas, but I continued to watch The Price is Right and Star Trek. Let's see, what else happened about this time? Oh, yeah, lying on the couch. I was lying on the couch watching TV at one point, and by then my belly was really swollen. And Nephi was running around the apartment playing, running around, and he leapt up in the air and was going to land on my tummy. And of course I was worried about you, so I knocked him out of the air. It was bad, but I wasn't going to let him land on my stomach and injure my unborn child. So, and poor Nephi, we had been so close and so cuddly, he was just shocked. He was shocked when that happened, so he became even more neurotic and shy. Let's see. We were good friends with the Bishop's family in Baton Rouge. Bishop, what was his name? Edna and Bob. Bob and Edna, what were their last names? I can't remember what their names. Anyway, he had married her when she was like 16. And they had 6 kids. And we were all really close. And she became like my big sister. There was we would sit in Relief Society. I became her counselor in the Relief Society. Edna was the Relief Society president, and Bob was the bishop. And your dad became a counselor in the bishopric because there weren't that many people who were willing to do things. And the ward when we moved in was very, very small. And very old. There were no babies in the ward when we moved there. But Edna and I would sit in Relief Society when the lessons were being taught. And you were so active in utero that my belly would start moving. And Edna and I would have a hard time not cracking up in the middle of, the Relief Society lesson. You would often stretch out and make these little points in my tummy. It's hard to explain. It would start over on one side and just push around to the other side, not like in a steady circle, but like poke, 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 poke all the way around my tummy. A couple of times, several times, a lot of the time you would be stretching out or something because you were very long And so you'd stretch out and just stay like that, locked like that, so that I'd have this big point on my belly and it would hurt like crazy. And I'd just rub and rub and rub and rub until you'd stop. And then you'd stick out another limb. I have no idea which one. And, I'd have to rub again to get you to stop doing that.
This has been the Tossing Grenades at Windmills podcast. Buy my book, Have Name Will Travel, available in many markets, including at Amazon.com. Copyright 2018, Red Anvil Amalgamated, LLC.
To fight the forces of evil!